What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. As we worked our way out of South Dakota down toward Utah, we started to realize that while we could go visit the national parks, there were not a lot of places to stay, a lot of options for places to stay. The campgrounds were completely full. We realized there's some boondocking spots down there, but as full as the national park campgrounds are, we're a little concerned that a lot of those boondocking spots may be kind of packed with people as well. We started looking for some different things to go visit, and what we found was a pretty awesome place right along the Utah-Colorado border, and that's where we decided to head. So the place we decided to head toward was Dinosaur National Monument. We wanted to go in on the Utah side though. So there's a couple different places you can enter Dinosaur National Monument, but the actual fossil bed quarry is over on the Utah side. So we started to head that direction. After we did some research, we found that one of the campgrounds inside the National Monument is actually open year-round.
In season, it's open for group camping, and on the off season, it's open for everybody to camp in, but it is first come, first serve.
Dun dun dun.
And there are no hookups. Yeah, and we knew we had some odds stacked against us. Not only was it a weekend.
Easter weekend.
Yes. And we weren't able to get there early, but we decided to take a drive through and take our chances.
The name of the campground is Split Mountain Campground. Beautiful campground, right on the river. It has some pull-through spots. I mean, the size of our RV was not an issue.
Right.
So we went into Dinosaur National Monument. We started making our way back toward the campground. As you're driving through toward Split Mountain Campground, the road, after you turn off the main road to go back towards the campground, the road does start to get a little skinny. It starts to make a climb up, and then you kind of crest over the top of the hill. You can see the campground down below you.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool view.
On the river. Awesome view.
Yeah.
And then you go down the other side of the hill, and it has some pretty sharp turns, so it feels like it's going to be really, really tight back there, but once you get back into where the campground is, there's plenty of room. There's a very large parking lot because there's also a boat ramp located down there, so they have a big parking lot for boat trailer parking, so there's plenty of room. So don't be concerned if you start to go down that road and it starts to feel a little sketchy. Once you get down there, it's wide open. The campground itself, the sites were huge because it's technically a group camping campground during season. So the sites are extremely large. When we got there, it was also extremely full. There was no availability. There were already a couple RVs parked in that parking lot area. Probably doing the same thing we were doing, trying to figure out where we were going to go next. We did have a backup plan that we hoped we weren't going to have to use, but as it turns out, it worked out quite well. The spot we ended up at was Outlaw Trail RV Park, which is right on the main road before you turn off to go back toward the Dinosaur National Monument.
Yep, only 7 miles from the entrance.
Yeah, so it's not far. So convenience-wise, it's fantastic. We didn't have any reservation or anything. We just pulled in there. Our plan initially was to stay at Split Mountain Campground for the whole weekend and just stay right there. But once we couldn't get into that campground, we decided that if we could see Dinosaur National Monument in one day, the exhibit hall that has all of the fossils and everything in it, and then also do a hike. So all that's very, very close. It's not real spread out.
Yeah.
So we figured if we could see that in one day, then we could go ahead and move on since we didn't get to stay in the campground where we were wanting to. So the next day, we got up, got an early start. We were at the visitor center right when they opened up, just shortly after 9 o'clock. Checked out the visitor center. So it's kind of split into two sections. You have your main visitor center, and then up behind it you have the exhibit hall, which has a lot of the fossils, and it has a big wall inside there, a big wall of fossils. They have a trail that will lead you from the visitor center back up to the exhibit hall. It's up on a hill in the back, so it would be I believe they said it was a mile and a half.
Yeah, it's about a mile and a half.
Mile and a half round trip walk there and back. But since we had other hikes we wanted to do that day, we went ahead and drove up. So
yeah, we just drove up.
Before COVID, they had a little shuttle that would shoot you up there to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
But now you can either walk or they'll let you drive up there.
Yeah.
So once we got up to the exhibit hall, like I said, there's a big giant wall of fossils. It's incredible. It's one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. I mean, it's really, really neat up there. They have a bunch of fossils on display that they found at that site. They have a few fossils that were found close to the area. What do you think about those fossils?
And they're pretty cool. And on the exhibit wall, you can actually touch the fossils. It's really cool. So if you don't feel like walking a mile and a half up, you can just drive up. And maybe after COVID, they'll have the shuttle running again.
Yeah, it was very impressive and absolutely worth the trip. Over there, we were again, we didn't really know what to expect when we went there, but it was really neat.
So on our way to the hike, there was an area that you could stop at and park and walk, I think it was 0.3 miles up to see some petroglyphs.
Yeah, it was like 2/10 to 3/10 of a mile.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the area from the road where you park. So there's a little small parking area to pull off on. You just walk up to the basically to the edge of the cliff that's there, and then and you can see the petroglyphs, which were also very cool. They have some information boards there that kind of give you a history of the petroglyphs and their significance, which again, just really, really neat to see stuff like that. That's hundreds and hundreds of years old. That's still there for people to come and see now. So that was really neat.
And my thoughts on the petroglyphs were they were very cool. They're really old. There was a lot, and you can even get, if you see anybody touching the petroglyphs, you can get up to a $5,000 reward. We didn't see anybody touching them. Now I'm sure people probably don't do that very often. I'm sure people don't touch the petroglyphs, but they're really cool and really old.
Don't touch petroglyphs.
Yeah.
Or Dylan will turn you in for $5,000. So after leaving the petroglyphs, we drove on up to the trailhead for the Desert Voices Trail. It was listed at 2.2 miles on all trails, and some of the pictures were outstanding, so we decided we would tackle that one. So the Desert Voices Trail is accessible from Split Mountain Campground, so you basically go right on back down the way you would go to Split Mountain Campground. Once you get down there, you have the boat ramp off to the left, campground's off to the right. So we just parked in the trailer parking area. There was some other cars parked there. It wasn't very full, so we just parked right there and started the trail from that point. And wow, I mean, that's one of the coolest hikes we've ever done. I mean, that whole landscape out there is just so much different than anything that we've experienced so far. The trail starts off, you follow an old riverbed down to where the trail splits off, and then you just make the loop around and then come back. So the trail was very easy to follow. It was very well marked, but just seeing all the different colors on the sides of the mountains out there, and you think of a desert hike and you think everything's barren and there's not going to be anything out there, but once you get out there and get in it, you realize that there's a tremendous amount of life out there, and it's crazy that some of the animals that live out there, some of the wildlife that lives out there can be so adapted to be extremely cold and snowy, and then also be out there when it's 100 degrees in the middle of summer.
Yeah, 100+ degrees.
Yeah, and we don't always get lucky enough to see wildlife on some of the hikes that we've done, but this time
we don't get too much.
But this time, what did we see, Dylan?
We saw not one, not two, but 3 mule deer.
Yeah, so we actually saw more than that. We actually got some really good video and pictures of 3 of them. As we kind of start our hike, we went off, you kind of go up over the top of the ridge, down the backside, and as we were coming back around, crossing back across the ridge on the way back, there's so many giant boulders out there, and there were 3 mule deer just kind of hanging out underneath the shade of some of those boulders, and they were not worried about us at all. they kind of eyeballed us a little bit, and one of them got up and moved off.
Yeah.
But they weren't too much worried about nothing. We saw a few before that were kind of back behind some bushes.
Oh yeah.
But you know, the way the wildlife out there can just kind of hide themselves in the shadows of the bushes and the few small trees that are out there is pretty impressive. I mean, you would walk right by them, and you know, if you don't see them, you'd never know they were there. I mean, they camouflage themselves very, very well back up in there. But just overall, a beautiful, beautiful hike. The weather was great. It got a little warm on us out there. Obviously, there is zero shade, so I think the only shade you get is a little sliver of shade as you come around one of the big sides of the mountain there. You get a little bit of shade casted off of there, but
yeah,
essentially no shade.
So my thoughts on this hike was I would definitely recommend it for more experienced hikers, and definitely make sure to bring water. It makes you really thirsty out there. It was a cool hike, but probably one of the highest hikes I've ever done. I know I say that about probably almost every single hike.
He does.
Every hike we did gets harder and harder.
Oh, thanks.
Kind of does, but I want to call this the hardest. I would probably call it the second hardest, the second or third hardest. It was tough, but the mule deer was really cool.
Yeah, we love the views, but Dylan's like, the views are whatever. He likes the wildlife.
That kind of wrapped up our Dinosaur National Monument time. I mean, like I said, there are other entrances that come in from the Colorado side that you can visit, but you know, I think seeing the fossils and the fossil quarry there, I mean, I think that's really the big highlight of Dinosaur National Monument for us anyway. So we were very, very glad that we stopped there. So that gave us just a very, very, very small taste of Utah. You know, I mean, it's just inside Utah. So coming through and driving that western side of Colorado like that into Utah gave us a new perspective on it, and it was very, very cool. So we made it back to Outlaw RV in time to get hooked up and get out of there. Our plan, head south and end up down by Fruita. So we had reservations at a Colorado State Park down there, so we wanted to start heading that direction. So we figured that we could go check out some of this fantastic BLM land everybody talks about. So the only way to get from, well, the most direct route to get from Jensen, Utah, where we were at, down to Fruita, Colorado, is to go down and across Douglas Pass. As we started down that way, we started going up and 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 up some more. And up some more. Then we had snow all over the ground.
Yeah.
And we continued to go up. And then the road got a little skinnier. That was probably, it wasn't scary. It was interesting. And we kind of come up and over the top and back down, and it was a very neat drive. So there are a lot of very large trucks that also use that route, so it's not impossible to do in a motorhome or a fifth wheel. But I just don't think I think I didn't really realize that we had to go up and across that pass to get down to where we were going. So it made for a very interesting drive, beautiful drive. Well, you can see forever up there.
Yeah,
just take it slow and you'll be fine though.
Yeah.
I think they got a little better view than I did. I was a little more focused on making sure to keep it on the hard road up there, because that's a long way down if you slide off the road up there. We started to head over to this to some BLM land that we found on Campendium, and it was just not our weekend for first come first served sites or for finding a boondocking spot. Man, we drove there, and being Easter weekend, that place was packed. I mean, it was really packed. This was a little bit different BLM type land because there were actually designated sites. But again, there was just so many people out there, and you know, any other time it might have been fine, but being a holiday weekend, there was a bunch of side-by-sides, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, a lot of off-road vehicles out there. So as we're driving down, it was extremely dusty, and just didn't, even if we would have found a spot there, the amount of dust that was flying around, I just don't think it would have been very enjoyable. So we headed back out of there and decided to go to...
Well, Dylan and I started looking for a spot to go that would be in the direction of the state park that we were supposed to be heading to in 2 days.
Yes, so Compendium.
Some of the campgrounds we found actually weren't even open yet. We called a couple that didn't open for like another couple weeks. So they were answering the phone to take reservations for 2 weeks away, but they weren't open. So that didn't do us any good. So we were starting to run out of options.
So Dylan found us one on Campendium. What was it?
And the name of that place was Monument RV Resort.
So Monument RV Resort. They had one spot that would fit us, and it was a 30 amp. It was just electric and water, but at this point we were happy to take whatever. They told us it was in the back by where they keep the storage RVs, which whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, who cares at this point?
So we show up, and not only was it in the back by where they kept the storage RVs, it was also by where they keep the dumpster.
Yeah, convenient and not convenient.
So we had convenient access to this dumpster. A nice big bright red dumpster.
Yeah, my mom told me, go walk with Dad to take the trash down. Go walk 5 feet.
Yeah, I mean, if the lid was open, I could have threw it in the dumpster without even leaving the RV.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have just...
Yeah, you could just pretty much open the door.
Yep, just tossed it right over there. But, you know, we joked about it. You know, it was kind of funny, but...
And at least it didn't stink.
Luckily...
It did not stink.
Yes, luckily it didn't stink. So, that was a plus. You know, we've seen some RV park dumpsters that are really rough, but this one was not. This one wasn't bad. We made jokes about it all weekend, having to share a site with the dumpster, but you know, overall, aside from the dumpster, it was actually a pretty good site. We were all the way in the back of the park in the corner, kind of back there by ourselves. There, you know, there wasn't anybody else on the campsite side of us, so we had a nice big space compared to the people that were in the middle of the pull-throughs. You know, they were right together with their neighbors. So, you know, it worked out really well, and it was actually not a bad spot. You know, other than sharing it with a dumpster. So once we got there, got set up, the truck was beyond filthy. It hadn't been washed since way back up at Custer State Park in South Dakota, and we were driven through snow and rain and ice and off-road and dirt. So it was beyond time to get that thing washed and get the inside cleaned out. So we did that. We also went over and did the Fruita Paleo Loop hike, which is just right down the street from Monument RV Park. They have a tremendous amount of hikes over in that area. So it was a nice short hike. You know, it was like less than a mile. So just to get out, stretch our legs from being in the truck so much the day before, and that's how we came back home and threw a ham on for Easter, and that's what we did. So we just kind of enjoyed a couple of relaxing days there, which was surprising because the weekend definitely didn't start off relaxing. It was getting a little stressful trying to find a spot. So you know, we don't typically just roll with zero plans whatsoever, but
we were just winging it.
And it's not that we were winging it. We did have a plan, but it was the plan was complicated a little bit, I think, by the holiday weekend, and
it will be interesting going forward, seeing if it was just because of it being a holiday weekend, or, you know, as we've been finding, a lot of these places are becoming more and more filled up, even if they're first come first served. So we tend to be a little more comfortable with reservations, maybe just not make them as far in advance.
Right.
But it will be interesting if that's possible, or if they're all booked up because people are booking far in advance.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, we have made a few reservations out, so there's some places that we're headed toward that. When we went on there to book them, they only had like maybe 8-10 spots left. Yeah, very, very limited availability. So we didn't want to take a chance on running into a problem when we got there, and having to, you know, and these are all, we're talking, you know, like state parks and Army Corps of Engineer parks, because, you know, we definitely don't want to run into a situation where we get there, can't get a spot, and then have to go to an RV resort and pay you know, a very high price.
Yeah.
Because we didn't do a little bit of planning. So so we do have a few spots booked in advance, but not completely mapped out. So that's how we're kind of approaching this. We're headed to a state park in Colorado.
Yeah.
That it's got a couple of fishing ponds that are stocked with rainbow trout.
Yep, supposedly, and I really hope we'll catch some fish out of that.
Yep, and you know, also there's disc golf close, so we're looking forward to playing some disc golf.
It's like a really nice disc golf course.
Yep, and Colorado National Monument.
Yep, Colorado National Monument.
Yep, really looking forward to getting there. That looks like a very cool place. So that is what we will bring you guys next. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you guys down the road.